Cool. Cool. Kia ora tātou. Kei te mihi atu ki te atua nāna nei ngā mea katoa. Ka huri aku whakaro ki ngā tini mate. Haere ki te pō. Ka huri aku whakaro ki te hunga ora. Tēnā rā koutou katoa. Kei te mihi atu ki te mana whenua. I tēnei wā, nei te mihi atu, nei te mihi atu, nei te mihi atu kia koutou. Ko waiau, ko Sheridan Waitai no te huko tika, ko maunga piko o ku maunga, ko pārenga o ku wahapu, ko rehura o ku whitirea o ku moana, ko Ngāti Kuri ahau. So kia ora everyone, I'm Sheridan. I hail from very, very tip of the north. And my oceans are Rehua and Whitirea, so Pacific and Tasman. I'm a bit close. And yeah, I'm a Waitai, so kia ora and thanks for having me. I'm just going to roll into it. It's I'm here because Lucy asked me to, right? And we've got partnerships with WWF and because Aroha's here. I have a real love-hate relationship with dogs, just going to let you know straight up. But thank you for the honour and privilege of allowing me to present today. So I'm actually going to talk about Rangītāhua. Rangītāhua is one of our kāinga. Does anybody know where Rangītāhua is? It's a bit like when you fellas say poor nights, kore he ingoa. Ko tā whitirangi rahi te ingoa o poor nights, eh? So Rangītāhua is what you might refer to as the Kermitics. Yeah, well, tōku kāinga, my home. So the presentation I'm going to roll with today is around our research program on Rangītāhua. And if you look at that kupu there, te mana, okay? Well, that's a real obvious one. Te mana o Rangītāhua he tūpuna tēnā, that's my ancestor. So it's hugely significant in the context of who I am. And this is why. Because for Ngāti Kuri, we've been raised on the water, we've been drawn from the water, and that's where our first breath comes from. And our second is always from our land. So we know intrinsically that land is a privilege, and if we look after the land, the ocean will be fine, because e ngau wana a hine moana ki te whenua. So when our behaviours are not too great, hine moana will bite at the land. She lets us know. Right. So moving on, in the context of ko waia Ngāti Kuri and where's Rangītāhua. So Rangītāhua is on our eastern ridge, so right up north. But we have lots and lots of other islands, and we live within a biodiverse hotspot. Our overarching plan is called Te Ara Whānui, which is many, many pathways. And this is Ngāti Kuri's response to Y262. So those of you who don't know what Y262 is, it's the fauna, flora, intellectual property rights of Māori, our mātauranga, above and below the ocean and 200 nautical miles out to sea. Right? Hugely significant claim that is now being addressed after 30 years by this government, and you'll start to see us roll out. So what we're talking about today and those policies that are getting developed in the back doors, they should significantly change as this claim rolls out. So this is about us and our relationships to our ocean, our land, our sea, what's in our sky, and it's our response of how we're bedding it down. And that is because this is our kin. These are the relationships that Ngāti Kuri want to continue to maintain and want to see as part of our future. And we know with what's going on with the ocean that it is in my mokopuna's time that she will inherit a place she will inherit a place of real disarray. So this is a place where we call our lungs and our oxygen banks. It's our interconnection across all of Te Moananui-a-Hiva. It's much bigger than Ngāti Kuri itself. So back in, I think, 2019, John Key did a bit of an overshot quite early in Washington and announced the Kumedic Century. Way before 2016, wasn't it? 2016, yeah, that's how long we've been going for. So we're still up for that as Ngāti Kuri, but it's more around a puna ora o te hā o tangaro. So not a fan of using government legislation in a way that then gets weaponised against us. Classic example is the fishery settlements. Yeah, the current MPAs are weaponised against us as Māori. You use things like rāhui inside MPI 186 closure, mā taitai. So these are our kupu that come with a whole depth around them and a whole series of behaviour to protect. When you see rāhui 186 played out by the Crown or government agencies, it's very contrast to the attention that we have as Māori. In other words, not the right people to do it. So we went about resetting the relationships, and we had to do this before we could go to large-scale bids like the Endeavour. And one of our main partners is in the room, Tom. There's Wendy, there's Livy. They've all been part of this journey. We went about resetting the relationships of those that engage in our space, because we've had hundreds of years of research, and as a tribe, we haven't had that research come back to us in a way that we can apply it with our kaitiakitanga. So over the last 6 years, would it be, Tom? 5 years? Yep. We set out relationship wānanga. Those who would like to have a relationship with Ngāti Kuri were invited to be with us, because we really needed the behaviours to change in science. You know, like we really needed scientists to come, not just marine ones, but we also needed the plant ones. We needed a whole ecosystem. Otherwise, it's just quite silo. I just want to look at this bug and I want to name it Timia, Timia, Timia. So what we did was we did a whole lot of stock taking. So we call that the Pupuri Mohanga, where we held bio-blitzes that brought not only our own whānau and hapu and our science community, but also the wider community to stock take lands and areas. We also hosted Taiatea, which is an international hui, where we asked for all our Pacific Island cousins to come down and kōrero together to come up with how might we better position to protect Te Moananui-a-Hiva together. So we're not in isolation, all those connected points. So with our partners at Pew, we've also started to develop what we call a Taiatea Marine Spatial Plan. And that's over 1 million square kilometres of land and coastline. So it takes you right up around Rangitāhua and back. So I need to talk to you later about that. And the reason why we've had to do that is because you've got all types of legislation and all types of government agencies, and you spend more time legislation fighting against legislation, that there's no common sense to actually allow you to implement kaitiaki management or just the greater good for all Aotearoa. So we're working on that marine spatial plan. However, last year, this was our big announcement. And that has been a result of 6 years relationships, 6 years hard grind, on our whenua, out on our water, with our natural partners, learning through doing, making heaps of mistakes, resetting, and continuing to go. So you're all familiar with the Endeavour? Yeah. No, you're not? Well, we'll get into it. So this is our vision for this particular project. And so Rangitahu includes an international significant terrestrial nature reserve and hosts one of Aotearoa's largest marine reserves, scientifically identified as one of the most pristine marine ecosystems on Earth. Te Mana o Rangitahu is a project that will transform Aotearoa's environmental stewardship and leadership through an Indigenous-led research program for Rangitahu, a large, pristine, globally significant yet critically understudied part of Aotearoa's exclusive economic zone. We are focused on Rangitahu's holistic wellbeing to be able to understand it as a site of cultural, biological and environmental significance, not only to Ngāti Kuri, but to Aotearoa and the Southwest Pacific. Te Mana o Rangitahu will be an international recognised example of Indigenous governance and holistic ecosystem management. Oh, it took you a long time to write that, eh, Wendy? So it was really interesting is bringing a whole group of scientists together, because we already had the relationship and they're allowed to bring others, who will benefit this project. And for the first couple of meetings we had, it was interesting how the whole focus was on mātauranga Māori. And we were politely trying to push back as iwi, because, we're okay, we know what we're doing. It's more around what is the expertise do you bring? What are you actually bringing to the table? And that was a real interesting process, because we were really trying to be, breathe, be a bit patient. And I just want to acknowledge Wendy and her level of maturity in her career and the relationship that she has. And the mana you have in that space, Wendy, because she was able to turn everybody around to actually position around what is the expertise that I'm bringing to the table. Don't worry about us. We're all good. We've been scientists, mai rano. We kind of need to know where you all fit in. So, shout at me, Tom, if I'm taking up too much time. Here's the MB objectives. They're really hard. They're really hard out. Definitely to support big transformative pieces. And I know some of you are already in Endeavour bids, so you know how hard that graft is. This is kind of our plan to move from our current state to our future state. And I'm just going to look in here. We are currently working on the Te Koopinga at the moment. So moving from the current siloed approach in science to what is the lattice of knowledge? How do we actually pull that when we cast the net real far and wide? How do we actually pull that up? Can you all read that rather than me? Yeah. So it's an integrated knowledge of the full ecosystems, inclusive of bird life. So just so we're clear, Tom and I are leads, even though Tom's a scientist over there. I'm not in your context. So we often have to sit for a bit of dialogue exchange to make sure we're on the same page. But that's our future state. This was hard work to actually bring it into a context where what's a bird's eye view? So if we're talking about from the bottom of the ocean, which would be the Kermadec Trench, to the stars in the sky, and what is that whole holistic well-being, what would that look like? What's a model we would need to build? Also, you can only have so many words in an Endeavour bid, so our team got creative and actually did a lot of diagrams. So we really want to generate new models of understanding to safeguard Rangitahua's ecosystem. Like we said before, 1 in 4 places in the world with pristine waters. We've got a really good start gate as a country because we've got something that's worth maintaining and enhancing, as opposed to my cousins in Palau that had a really poor start rate with their dead corals and coral reef and pollutions and behaviours. So in the world, we're in a really good position to maintain and lift. Here's some of our team, our main players. Libby's in the room down there. We get awesome updates from Dave at Auckland University. And we're all learning about nodes. Yeah. Yeah. So what Ngāti Kuri has is we have our own research team. They're all Ngāti Kuri. We have Ngāti Kuri interns, and roughly there's around 14 FTEs through this project that all touch Ngāti Kuri, our own people. So we went from a little, what we call them, Tom, the vision not vision mātauranga. Yeah, we went from small little vision mātauranga testing and trialling projects to an endeavour bid within 5 years. Yeah. Here we go. So this is how we're going to lay it out. I really can't see my writing like on this. This is kind of self-explanatory, so have a look at it. But bottom line is for Ngāti Kuri, it's around our reconnection, re-identifying and restoring, and part of that is actually reimagining. So within our pieces of work, there's large components of pūrākau, Indigenous storytelling, we have voyaging. We recently finished a big tārai waka, which is waka building and waka navigational wānanga in preparation. At every step of the way, our young people and our schools are a part of our projects, and all the resources then land to build that puna mātauranga for our mokopuna. Yeah, that might be easier. Push one to the left. Push and hold. Push and hold. You're there. Okay. So there you go. Around our capacity building, we've got PhD students, at least 2, all our summer interns, and artists and residents. So one of the interesting things we've found is when we're working with Department of Conservation is trying to map out what's previously been done in terms of archaeological work as well. So we have in our histories that our tūpuna transplanted flax, like harakeke, we call it kōrari. Yeah. And through those flaxes, we have 4 Koopinga, 4 fishing nets. And then some of those fishing nets helped bind the kurahopo waka when it was hulled, that allowed us to come into our area up home known as Takapokura. And that's when the waka people married into us. So in our minds, we know that there's harakeke, and we're trying to go back and understand what the biodiversity looks like. And the department says, no, absolutely no flax on the island. There's none this, there's no this, there's no that. And then in our science team, we ask, is there any history or collections of harakeke, korari on the island? Within 20 minutes, we have a response. Yes, there are. Within that day, they've activated their nursery team at Manaaki Whenua to plant out X amount of those korari seeds to return to Ngāti Kuri. It's as simple as that. You know, the level of expertise in the whanaungatanga and the genuine intent to enable Ngāti Kuri to reconnect to our islands has been huge. And I've never seen a project like it, Tom. Are there any questions around this graph? Sweet. Here's our horizontal shifts.
Don't laugh about these. These were hard to pull out.
If we're going to create large-scale sanctuaries, it's really important that that whakapapa across Te Moana Nuiahiwa is intact, right? So when we reach out, we're not just talking about any part of the Pacific continent. We're being real specific about places or ngā tūpuna that they knew that were hugely significant to the environment, that they wanted protected. And what we do is we use science to back that up. It's not about science leading it out. It's about our traditional knowledge leading it out. So in 5 years, those links with the Pacific that we've already started on those ocean areas, and I do a little bit with Lucy, they should be fully in flow. One of the biggest aspirations for us as a tribe is that this country would actually have on their lips on the daily Rangītāhua, that actually know what it is, know where it is, the significance of it, and the importance of it to their well-being. So we've got a series of activities that we'll be doing in there. Oh, yeah. Okay. Government policy, strategy, or priority. We're going to have some really sound evidential information that's going to really help inform policy. And we use these existing ones to help us craft and shape what we want this project to do. So having a whole framework based on mātauranga, on Māori, what is it that you're measuring? How do you know what you're measuring as well? And what's that whakapapa and interconnection? Big shifts. Over the duration of our work program, and it's fair to say that the next 5 years are just the first 5 years. They're just the beginning. Our first voyage out starts in September this year, and mana whenua will go first. And the reason for that being is we've attempted several times. There's been quite a significant amount of expeditions, but Ngāti Kuri has not been able to reconnect to our island the way we should have been. Yeah. So that's a bit of a mumwai and a bit of a grievance, but this project helps us to move into that healing space. One of the things I can say in here is government is really good at collaborating with each other when they want to take something. Yeah, they'll soldier up. When it's time to collaborate, to be an enabler and to empower, and quite frankly to tautoko, they can't do it. They don't know how to do it. But they can collaborate when they want to take something. And it might not seem relevant to this particular project for Rangītāhua, but this is our kāinga. And why I say kāinga is because that was our home. And in 2 years post the signing of Te Tiriti, the first thing that came into play for us was the Raupo Whare Act, which means we were no longer allowed to build houses out of Raupo. So if a coloniser wants to hit you in the heart to destroy you, it'll hit you in your home. And then from there you had Towns and Cities Acts that locked us off our forests to build the cities. And then from there you had the Town and Country Act that then inevitably forced us into these little reservations where we couldn't repair and we couldn't build whare. Yeah. So to go from that space to this space of restoring kāinga and ahika and Rangītāhua is hugely significant. So when I say to the Crown, soldier up to collaborate, here's an opportunity. We're not asking, we're giving them an opportunity to engage. And if they don't want to, kei te pai, because we're still going home with all of our friends to do science work. Here are the benefits. Ngāti Kuri ticks all the boxes. Yeah, we want that, we want that. But ultimately, to be able to inform good policy will be hugely significant. To shift practice, yeah. And then that's pretty much me. Now, it's highly unusual for us, Tom. Ngāti Kuri doesn't really talk about what we're going to do. We usually tell everybody after we've finished it. So that's me telling you for a change what we're going to do. But I look forward to hosting you all at the symposium where we can actually talk about what we've done. Any quick questions for Sheridan before we stop for lunch?
Great, Sheridan. I think it's working. That was, I can't even think of it, phenomenal. Miharo, just amazing. Thank you. What you've told is a future. Well, it is a reality if you know it's a present future that I hope we can all have the guts to walk into. And I'm just interested, so I'm working a lot with Waiheke Island, and I'm interested in the role that Tauiwi have had in here, the community up with you, if you can talk a bit to that as well. Kia ora.
Yeah, okay, so we're really clear about what mana whenua is, and then there's tangata te tiriti. So those of you are here through te tiriti, and then there's our friends that are our tauiwi, not non-tangata tiriti, like Tom, but gets it more than any other New Zealander. He's Australian. A lot of work goes on around for us. We've had years of it. Is we know who we are, and we create a space for others to find out who they are within that space. So while we're clearly identified, there is a role and contribution for anybody, but it's values-based, mission-driven, values-based, mission-driven. So our values, they adopt. We're very descriptive on what they look like. We test and trial new things. So we have a significant amount of non-Māori within our space, but also a significant amount of iwi Māori. Yeah. Does that help?
The broader community, are people excited about this? They're like, yeah, we're all on.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of business as usual for us. The other part is that some people don't know how significant some of the work is that you do, and that's kei te pai too, because they don't need to. What matters is when they turn up, as we all are in Aropa, they do the best they can do with the job that they have. So it's all around contribution when they dock in. We run in the summer taiatea surveys, which brings in our whole wider community, but I'm one, and it's all around understanding the values and behaviours of those people coming to our shores. So you've got wider programs of work that allow non-Māori to help you identify the values and behaviours that are happening versus the values and behaviours you want to have in Aotearoa.
Kia ora, Sheridan, tēnā koe mo tō kōrero, he tino rawe mo tō kōrero. I just really wanted to, I felt really quite inspired by your presentation, and 30 years ago, I was a secretary for Uncle Witty McMath from Ngāti Wai, and I travelled all up and down the coastline with your grandmother actually, and Auntie Del Wihongi. And your nanny, she gave me a taonga that is probably one of my most prized possessions, and it's a pupu harakeke. And listening to you today, You sound so much like you, your strong advocacy, your no-nonsense approach. She taught me so many things, and it's a real pleasure to hear her mokopuna speaking today. And we're so lucky, everybody sitting in this room, we're so fortunate to have a window into Te Ao Māori, and what a beautiful future Ngāti Kuri is presenting to us. So warmest congratulations and thank you so much. It was I just thought back about your nan. I thought when she gave me my pupu harakeke and the kōrero that goes with that. And I only wish I looked at it before we came down and I thought, shall I bring you? And I thought, oh no, I don't want it to get lost. So I kept it in my thing, but I wish I'd have brought it because it's always been, it's been a reminder of a wonderful time when Y262 was absolutely frowned upon. And it was a pleasure to be there. Kai tono tono. Kia ora.